Well, we're here again. It's been, what, 3 weeks?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've checked in, and it has been a whirlwind here. We have been extremely busy. Today has been a whirlwind. So now we're going to sit down, and you can hear we got the birds in the background again. By the way, if anybody has any suggestions on how to get rid of birds in your barn,
Pigeons.
we are all for it. Pigeons and birds, we have a problem here. But we've got a minute just to sit down, and those are coming far and fewer between.
True story.
So, yes.
I just spent 2.5 hours with one person.
Yeah. Earlier this week, it's Thursday afternoon, about, 2 or 3 o'clock?
3.
I believe that Monday I counted and I gave 12 lessons. And it seems like every day's been really good and busy. We have not had time to sit down and do this. We do have some content that you're probably watching right now. Casey went trail riding at Flag, right?
Yeah, last weekend.
Let's hear about that.
Oh, it went really well. There was a group of endurance riders down there. I believe they were cleaning up the trails because they will have an endurance ride Memorial Day weekend, I believe. And so a friend of mine and I went down there. She handled it really well. The only, my friend has a 14-foot gooseneck stock trailer. And she was a little unsure of how small it was. And it was, as tall as she is, I was almost concerned about the saddle horn touching the top of the trailer if she were to lunge in, and the noise that it made. But she settled in fine. We got down there. I just gypped her around just a minute to make sure she was good. We got on and took off. I mean, there wasn't anything she looked at, nothing she worried about, and she can flat move out. Like, she can cover some ground. And some of those videos, I'm hoping, but the GoPro, that we worked the GoPro correctly. We went through water. She crossed logs. There was a couple of places that we had to go through the brush and around to get to the trail, and she had no problem being a bulldozer and cutting her own path. That was for sure.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, she was brave, very brave. That would be the word that I'd use.
Did you ride her in the front, the back, everywhere?
Front.
You rode her in the front, and that's really hard for a horse the first time going out. A lot of times we'll put our horses, if we have a new one we're taking out, we'll put them in the back and let them kind of follow for a while and not make everything real hard for them, and let them kind of follow around up the trail and all that stuff, and let something else lead. That's good, because a lot of times, if you guys want to try this, if you have a horse that always follows, you put them in the front, and they're going to, all of a sudden, they're on high alert, and I think they just take that responsibility over with the herd instinct that if they're in the front, it's their job to find boogers.
And they normally travel a lot slower.
They do.
Because they're not trying to catch up to anything.
Yes, and if you try to push them very far ahead, normally they'll start weaving left and right, wanting to go back to the pack.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And so what else has been happening with Sandra Dee?
I got her to a point where I didn't necessarily feel like I wasn't progressing, but it wasn't progressing as much as I felt like it could be. And so I had you coach me every day last week.
Yeah.
And then I had you coach me Monday, Tuesday. And we've spent a lot of time out in the outdoor. Yes. And yesterday she felt great out there. Didn't really look at anything. We're really working on getting that really great connection, left foot to the left rein, right foot to the right rein, so that we can develop that turnaround. Her side pass, man, oh man, we worked on that 3 days, I think, and it got 1,000 times better. She will definitely anticipate side passing a pole, because the last day of last week, because we had done so much over a pole, I'm trotting her over the poles, and she stops and starts side passing. I was like, oh, wait, no, we're not. We're just going forward. And so that day I did not side pass her over a pole. We did a lot of trotting over them. I think that was Friday, because then Saturday morning before I went trail riding, I did some trotting over the poles. But she was like, oh, yeah, I got this. Here, Mom, let me show you.
Yeah.
But we'll just side pass it right now.
And being able to ride outside really helped all our horses a lot this week. It's been nice, but Casey does look like a tomato right now.
I do.
She's a little bit bare-skinned, and she got pretty burnt. And you did wear suntan lotion, didn't you?
Not suntan lotion, but sunscreen. I did.
Sunscreen, sorry.
Yeah, day before day before yesterday?
Yeah.
That I put it on that morning, but I didn't reapply.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And then by the time you were giving me a lesson out there, and I scratched my arm, and I thought I was going to pee myself.
Yeah.
And then I went to wipe the sweat off my face with my T-shirt, and my nose felt like it was peeling off. And so yesterday I reapplied like 3 times. Your wife came in, and I hugged her whenever she came in, and she said, "You smell like sunscreen." I was like, "Yeah."
Which is my favorite smell.
Yeah. I layered it on yesterday.
So during the coaching out there, why don't you explain a little bit about what we were working on and what we were trying to get and what we did like, what we didn't like, and kind of talk us through that a little bit so the audience kind of understands what we were doing.
Sure. We were outside this week anyway. You had me go ahead and pick her up, walk, trot, lope, circle to the left. She was pretty true. She stayed on the circle. She was straight. Her body was driving forward. And then going to the right, we found that she really wants to hug the outside, like she wants to haze to the outside of the circle. And that her feet, in the indoor, it's hard to tell sometimes how much your body actually changes position whenever you turn. But in the outdoor, it gets pretty evident. And so whenever we were, or because they're just always anticipating in here. There's a wall coming up, I turn. And then in the outdoor, there's a little more freedom to where you don't always have to count on a wall. And so whenever we were loping around to the right, she really faded to the outside. And then whenever I picked her up to cut my circle in half, she didn't guide as well as I wanted her to. She didn't really pick up and change direction. She just kind of motorboated around there. And so we worked on getting her to think right, because she obviously she thinks left really well. But to the right, you would go ahead and lift and ask her to come right, and then she would go back left. And so we worked on getting her to think right, getting her to circle down into that smaller circle, making your circle go from big to small, and then letting her back out of it. And we really worked on that leg, getting her to, like, whenever I flutter my leg, for her to think lateral and not forward first.
A little bit of draw on that outside leg.
Yes.
And that's very handy, because then you can use your leg to aid in the problem of going right and everything you do. You can actually use it. And if you don't have that, when you add that leg, and say you're loping and you've pulled the right rein, you're heading right, and when you're loping and the horse is not guiding right, there's only a few options you can have on a really green horse. But if you add that outside leg and it doesn't have a lot of a lateral to it, and maybe even a little bit of draw, your horse is just going to bend its head and run faster straight until it gets to an object, a fence or wall, and then it'll turn. And where you think you really got connection there, you would only know it's not there if you were in a giant field and tried to lope and put markers. Markers tell the story. You put cones or heck, it can be a tree, it doesn't matter. But it really tells you how long it takes you to get your airplane lined up on the runway. And talk a little bit about she's always thinking left, and how you diagnose that, and how do you get to where you're really recognizing that, so that you can not necessarily fix the problem, because it's really not a problem to the horse, but how you can get that horse more balanced and equal.
So that I was getting ready to also say that we worked on going straight, being able to
Yes.
turn and then think straight. And so whenever you said, hey, go ahead and steer across the circle. And so whenever I steer, I get the turn and then I put my hands down. And every time that I would get the turn, I'd put my hands down, she'd go left.
In the right lead.
Yes, in the right lead.
Yes.
And so then we would maybe take 2 strides and I'd pick her up and we'd go right and then let her back out and she'd go left. Well, then that first moment where either she traveled straight or she thought right, we stopped her, or if it just, she continually was thinking left, then you would have me set my hand and just let her screw all the way down and find that smaller circle going to the right and eventually step across and then let her back out. And it didn't take long at all for her to start thinking right, which made, whenever I picked up on the right rein, it made the guide better.
Yes.
But we put, where I feel like that's going to really help is there's so much emphasis on, can my horse turn around? And we've talked before where all the turnaround is a guide, or all that is it's guiding. And so if I can get her to guide and think right whenever I lift that rein, a true right, then the turnaround isn't going to be a problem.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. And a lot of people, I'm riding one right now that when we went to the outdoor, I've loped her a lot in here and rode her, and she's getting fairly broke. But I noticed in my right lead, and this is going to affect my rundowns, but in my right lead, when I square her up and let her go across the pen, wherever it may be, even in the right lead, this horse will drift left. And in other words, the spine is not aligned, and the motor's, the motor in the back the horse is not balanced. The motor's pushing the horse out to the left. And so if it's in the right lead and drifting left, it's definitely not thinking right, because that's very difficult. I mean, that's a lot more difficult for a horse to do than if it was loping a straight line in the right lead and drifting right. And
something that I've found out on not only Sandy, but on that black horse I was riding this morning, once they get balanced and they're thinking forward and up under themselves, they stop better too.
Yes.
That Sandy, number one, is not going to have any problem stopping. She
wants to stop.
She says, "Here, let me do this for you." But the black horse, he struggled with stopping.
Yeah.
A little, and he would stop, like he wasn't running through the bit, but it was hard and it hurts.
Yeah.
But today I did a lot of that. Hey, come left. Hey, come right. Then go straight and get under yourself. And he was like, hey, yeah, I'm balanced. I'm up under myself. Let me stop for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all a part. For anybody dealing with that, that's very normal. All these horses pull left or right normally. And it's very hard to get a horse to run a straight line. I've been practicing here in the indoor a little bit on the long rectangles, and when they do, they hit the stop. But if they're leaning left, right, or anything like that, you'll find it in the stop.
Yes.
And it's not the stop, it's the approach. But so some other things you've been doing with Sandy is we have the bridge in here now.
The teeter-totter.
The teeter-totter. And then we also had a pedestal. It's not here right now, but it's been here for a couple weeks.
Yeah, he took it home to add more height to it.
Yeah.
For the freestyle.
So we have a pedestal in here. I don't know what the dimensions were on it, but basically Casey got Sandy to where she'll get up on that all fours like an elephant. Yeah. And took that well?
Yeah. It took me about 3 sessions to get her all the way up there. But I just took it slow. I felt she's the type of horse that I feel like if you hammer something, she's not going to want to do it. And so I just kind of took it easy the first session. I got a foot. I got her to try. I got her to lift a leg and set it on it. The second session, she put both front feet on it, and the third session, both back feet. And then just here recently, I actually rode her up on it, and she took that really well too. And the teeter-totter, it wasn't. I mean, I thought that maybe the ground moving underneath her would bother her, but it didn't really. I mean, she took it real, and she'll get on it from either end, either the end that moves or the end that's already stationary. She doesn't really have any issues with it.
Yeah, all the horses I think have enjoyed that. Now the
I've
cowboy
enjoyed
curtain
it.
that we cowboy curtain that we have going into our indoor. So I showed up Monday morning, and Casey had ridden in here Saturday or Sunday or both.
Both.
And she said, "Oh man, I forgot to take the cowboy curtain down." And it's our gate's 4 foot wide. And I got here and I'm like, well, this will be interesting. But we have it still in there, and nobody's died. And
I think there's been a couple of horses that thought they were going to.
Yeah, and there's been some horses that you wouldn't think would bother, that they are not in on it. So it's taken a little bit to get them talked into that. But all in all, it's still hanging here, and we can spread it wide and let them walk through it, and kind of break it down for them like everything else, where they can kind of get it. But
Sandy, I think she probably took it better than any of them.
Yeah, but a lot of it's too because she's had a lot thrown at her lately, and her mind's pretty malleable. And it's when you get them to think, it's like I was talking to a friend of mine, another horse trainer, earlier in the week, and we were talking about the desensitizing the horse. So when you take a flag or a tarpon or a raincoat and you desensitize a horse, you're asking the horse to kind of get used to it and calm down and accept it. Okay. Now that's not exactly teaching a horse how to think. That's teaching a horse how to relax. So you can do all that you want, but if you haven't taught a horse how to think, say for instance, if you had a rope on or a little rope on a front foot and you tug that rope, and you're asking that horse to not relax and ignore, but to notice there's a feel going on there, and to find out and search, how do I get that there's to be some release. How do I achieve that? And now you're teaching a horse to think. And that's really important when you make that first ride, because so you've got them where you can wave your arms on them. Well, that's all nice, but can you cause a little bit of energy and cause them to move? And that horse has to learn how to search while you're on the ground.
Search was going to be the word.
And how to respond to rhythm and stuff like that. Because otherwise, all the groundwork's all great. You can do your sticks and bags and strings and all that around them, which we all use.
Yeah.
But it has to relate to the saddle, and it's better to get a horse, to teach a horse how to think and process. Because you can take a horse that's never seen something, and they may raise an eyebrow at it, but they'll process it and hopefully help you and try to make it through it.
And along those same lines. So Sandy, somebody was here the other day whenever we went out I went out to catch her, we went out to see her or something, and Sandy, she turned away. She didn't leave, but she just kind of moseyed away as I went to walk in or walk towards her, and she caught me out of her eye and she stopped. And I stood there and I just waved my right hand just a little bit, and she stepped that hip around and she looked at me, and I got asked, why didn't she leave? Well, because she's not in it. My energy isn't telling her to leave. It's telling her, hey, search for a different answer. Yeah,
and she was acting instead of reacting.
Yes.
And there's a big difference. If you have a horse that knows how to, he can be very ignorant, but he knows how to process. Well, now you have all these tools on him to where you can actually get them through a situation, and even from their back. But you have to do it on the ground with the thought that this has to transfer to the saddle.
Yes.
Because otherwise, I mean, you're going to have a big gray area, and things can go south and get confused. And
you don't always have to get to 60.
No.
To get a horse to try. And I think that, like that day that I told you that Sandy was one that I feel like if you really went to hammer something, that she definitely wouldn't want to do it. And you'd probably lead to refusal.
Yeah.
But so that first day that we introduced the pedestal, if I would have just hammered on her, instead of saying, all right, well, there's 1 foot, I can just about guarantee you that it probably would have taken me longer to get her up on it.
Yeah.
and to stay up on it and then be okay with me moving around or dropping the lead rope and her staying up there. Like, it would no longer be a good place because I got to 60 and didn't release on just the little bit of try that she gave me. It was the whole picture. So I feel like so many people are like, well, this is the response I want. Well, there's little building blocks to that response. You've got to get A, B, C before you can get to D.
Yeah.
And I think that's overlooked sometimes.
I think it's overlooked a lot, and a lot of us, and I'm guilty as anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is we just
Me too.
we go from A to M, and then we get M in, and we're all great again, and then all of a sudden we're at TUV, and it doesn't work very good.
Which, whenever you coached me on Monday, I think it was, I was guilty of that too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, hey, let's slow it down. Let's slow it down and let's simplify this just a little bit. We're overcomplicating it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, there's one other thing, and we're probably not going to be as long this time as we are sometimes, because we could sit here and talk all day about this stuff, or I could. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
But we have a benefit ride coming up, and that's on Saturday, June the 3rd. And we will be sharing that on our Facebook. Have you shared it yet?
Well, she tagged me in it.
Okay. And one of our sponsors is actually putting this together, correct?
Yeah, K&R Stables.
Yeah, K&R Stables, and that'll be Kara and Rex
Hendricks.
Hendricks. Yep. And it's a benefit trail ride at Flag Springs, right? Down at Washburn. All proceeds raised will benefit Casey Hollingsworth and Sandy as they travel to Franklin, Tennessee for the 2023 Extreme Mustang Makeover. They have an event schedule you can see too. I think it starts at 8:30 in the morning to 9. There's a pancake breakfast, donations accepted. And then from 9 to 9:30, I'll be leading a horsemanship devotion. And then 9:30 to 10, there will be a Meet the Mustang. You get to meet Sandra Dee. And at 10 a.m., there's a poker chip trail ride. And that'll start at 10 a.m. And that will, again, be Saturday, June the 3rd, coming up. And if you have any questions or anything about that, I think to help prepare and RSVP, you can text your name and the total number of people in your group to Kara, correct?
It is, yeah.
And you guys can contact her for anything if you want to come to the Benefit Trail Ride June 3rd.
I want to say, too, about Kara and Rex. Like, they're some of my biggest supporters as far as the makeover goes. And they put together this event. And then I've also, like, the teeter-totter I've got in here, the pedestal I've got in here. Rex built those with the help of Kara, even if Kara told me, no, I think I was just babysitting the grandbaby whenever he did one of those. But that still helps. So they are and they supplied the materials. Like, they build them, they put in the time. Rex took the pedestal to add some height to it, and he's going to put some rubber on top so we don't worry about sliding. They're always checking in to see what I need.
And Rex is really handy. He's kind of like a pocket on a shirt.
He is, yeah.
He was here. He brought Kara in here last night. Kara had a lesson with my wife, and Rex and I visited for quite some time. It was mostly about running and exercising, but
Yes.
we had a good visit, and he is very handy. This bridge and the pedestal are put together really nice, and I think he's enjoying retirement.
Yes. But the good people,
Very good people.
that really try hard to support people and support their community, and I couldn't be more grateful. I also will be posting a picture, and I'm hoping to get the Macatis on it, but Second Calf Leather, also owned and operated by Carrie Cook and Jason Cook. They have made me the most pretty headstall and slobber straps to go show in, and I'll be posting that soon as well. But I just couldn't be more thankful for my sponsors. There's so many of them, and I know that you've been running their logos
Yes,
on
I'll try to list that on the on the video you guys are watching.
Yes, but I couldn't be more thankful. It's definitely, it takes a load off whenever there's so many people that's willing to help.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get it all done too. There's a lot goes into it.
Yes.
Well, we apologize again for it being, has it been 3 to 4 weeks?
Something like that.
It has been a long time.
Yep.
We apologize for it taking so long, but we did sit down here today, and it is, like I said, Thursday, May 11th, and we will try to get you something again in 2 weeks, but we are busy.
One thing I wanted to cover, I guess there's 2 things. One, we're going to be doing her promotional pictures very soon.
Yes.
And the reason for the promotional pictures is because Sandy will be auctioned after the makeover. So
Yes.
Sandy is for sale.
Yes.
So if there's anybody out there that is interested in her or following her journey and is considering purchasing her after the makeover, feel free to reach out, talk to me. I can get you some additional videos. You can come see her. We can set up a time. Just if you've got any questions about that process, feel free to reach out.
Okay, and how they get a hold of you on Facebook?
So you can either go Ride for the Brand Horse Training, or you can go to my personal page, Casey Hollingsworth. You can also reach me. If you reach out to me through Messenger, I'd be happy to give you my phone number, and you can give me a call, and we can chat about it.
Yep. So if you guys have any questions or anything on that, you guys can give her a call. And I think that's about it. I think we're getting ready to go back at it. I think
she's
Casey,
waiting for me. She's
out here looking at Casey, but I think Casey's going to get her a sandwich first. She's getting a little hangry if she don't eat. And we wouldn't want her to be unfair to Sandy because she's hangry.
Yes.
But we will try to get back with you. And until then, we're going to get off here and let you guys go. And I hope you guys have a great day. And we will talk to you in hopefully a couple of weeks.